Imagine constantly being scared for your life and being chased by gangsters, being thrown into a cockroach-infested room and knowing what will happen next. You are tortured, whipped with metal cables, locked in a cage, and shocked with loose electrical wire. You are tortured, whipped, and this is fictional. Sometimes you can't accept what is happening. If you are in this kind of situation, you want to believe that this doesn't happen to other people, but it does. This happens every day, and this is happening as I speak. For everybody in this room, imagine, what if this was you or somebody else you know? My name is Omar Bainto, and today I would like to enlighten you about a very serious global issue. It is called human trafficking. For those of you who do not know much about this topic, let me provide you with some background information. Human trafficking is the practice of people being lured, coerced, and tricked, and they are then removed from their home or country. They are then forced to work with little or no pay, and they are highly exploited. It is considered a form of modern slavery, and the victims of human trafficking can be used in a variety of different ways. These include prostitution, forced labor, and other forms of involuntary activities. I'm going to mainly focus this presentation on the prostitution factor because it is the fastest growing aspect of human trafficking. Now, as of 2007, 27 million people were considered slaves in today's modern society. There is smuggling of people happening each year worldwide, and it has now reached over 800,000 victims. Women and children are still favored and the target of human trafficking, and they are comprised 80% of the total number of people being trafficked. Individuals under the age of 18 also comprise of half of this number. According to the United Nations, 161 out of 192 nations, including Canada, are involved with this organized crime, which is the second or largest organized crime in the world, and it's approximated to generate over $32 billion. $32 billion is a staggering and disturbing number. Isn't it sad to think that this is the cruel reality in today's society? People making an extremely wealthy empire off of the suffering of other people. It is very difficult for me to process how on earth human beings can be so vindictive towards other human beings. Just the other day, I was reading an article on the BBC website. It was about a 17-year-old girl from Cambodia. She was formerly involved with human trafficking, but she has since escaped this twisted circle of abuse. She was forced to have sex with hundreds of men before the age of 10. Before she was 10. Not only was she sexually abused, but she was punished in unthinkable ways. She was burned with a hot poker and covered with biting insects. I don't have words to describe how I feel about that. You might ask how she became involved with human trafficking at such a young age. Her mother, yes, her mother, the very person that was put on earth to protect her, was the very person that took everyone and everything away from her. Her mother sold her for money, and that's where her unthinkable journey began. Stories like this are quite common, and they are becoming increasingly more prominent in Asia and Central Europe. Although prostitution is illegal in most of these countries, officials are often paid to look the other way. Now, you might be curious as to why human trafficking is more attractive than other sorts of illicit activities such as drug trafficking. Well, unlike drugs or arms, people can be reused time and time again. So what's the point of human trafficking, and why do people do it? Well, there are a number of factors, but usually common answers include a lack of employment, social discrimination, corruption in government, material issues such as these, and the recklessness of mistakes have not been resolved. In return, millions of people have suffered unheard of consequences and punishments. They may be beaten or locked up and promised their freedom only after earning, through prostitution, their purchase price. The main motive of a woman or underage girl to accept an offer from a trafficker is financial opportunities for herself or her family. In many cases, traffickers usually offer a legitimate work promise to have a job or organized studies. They are often exposed to different psychological problems also. They suffer social alienation in the host and home countries, stigmatization, social exclusion, intolerance, and local communities find it often difficult to reintegrate them. Governments offer little assistance to them and social services to traffic victims upon their return. Now, you've heard of the horrid situation of human trafficking in other countries, but what about Canada? Well, foreign trafficking in Canada is worth $400 million annually. 600 to 800 people last year were trafficked in Canada alone. Now, a recent report concluded that Canada is an international embarrassment when trying to curb human trafficking, and that's quite embarrassing in my opinion also. A developed country such as Canada cannot handle and cannot worry about something as small as issue as that. I think they could do some more things. Now, the issue of human trafficking may not be as widely as known as other illicit issues such as drug trafficking, but I believe that one of the most heinous and crude actions that humans have ever taken part in. Can you even begin to imagine what it would be like to be that little girl sold and thrown into a dark and grimy dungeon filled with 10 men 10 times your age? Could you imagine how devastated and confused you would be after you were just raped numerous times by men and then were tortured for trying to escape? The questions running through these people's minds are endless and heartbreaking. Their queries include, why me? What have I possibly done to deserve this? How can I ever live normally? When will all of this insanity end? For many, questions like that have gone unanswered, and some have not escaped the vicious circle of human trafficking. But for those who have, they will be permanently psychologically and physically scarred for the rest of their life, and we may not be able to help. So I have this last question for you. It's a very serious problem in today's world, and we live here in a great country like Canada. But what are we going to do to help? Can we raise awareness? Talk to people in our schools, our workplace? I'm sure there's something we can do. People are suffering, while we're living a good life here for the most part. What will you do to make a difference? Thank you.